The black sedan rolled through the familiar streets of Willowbrook like a ghost returning to haunt old memories. James Richardson adjusted his Italian leather tie and watched the small town unfold outside his window. 9 years had passed since. He last drove these roads back when his biggest worry was making rent on his tiny apartment above the hardware store. Now he owned 17 companies across 4 continents. His face graced magazine covers with headlines like the tech giant who refuses to slow down, and from small-town dreams to global empire. The boy who once delivered newspapers on a rusty bicycle had become a billionaire before his 35th birthday. But success felt hollow as he passed the old movie theater where he had shared his first kiss with Jenny Morrison in 10th grade. The building stood empty now, its marquee dark and covered in rust. Everything changes, he reminded himself. But that was the natural order of things. His driver turned onto Main Street, where Richardson Industries planned to build their newest data center. The town council had practically begged for the investment. Jobs were scarce in Willowbrook since the textile factory closed 5 years ago. Young people left for bigger cities, following dreams that small towns could no longer contain. James understood that pull. He had felt it burning in his chest every day during high school, the desperate need to escape and become something larger than the limitations around him. The difference was, he had actually done it. The sedan stopped in front of a building that made James's breath catch in his throat. Where Murphy's old diner used to serve greasy burgers and weak coffee, a charming cafe now stood. Hand-painted signs advertised Luna's Art Cafe in flowing script. Colorful paintings filled the windows, and wind chimes danced gently in the afternoon breeze. Luna, the name hit him like a physical blow. "Sir, should I wait here?" his driver asked. James nodded absently, his eyes fixed on the cafe. He stepped onto the sidewalk, straightening his $1,000 suit jacket out of habit. The afternoon sun felt warmer than he remembered, casting golden light across the renovated storefront. Through the window, he could see easels scattered around small tables where customers painted while sipping coffee.
Ow.
Children's artwork covered one wall in a riot of colors and imagination. It was exactly the kind of place Luna Hayes would create, he realized. Warm, welcoming, filled with beauty and possibility. Luna Hayes, his former assistant who had disappeared from his life as suddenly as morning mist. For 3 years, she had been his right hand, his anchor in the chaos of building his empire. She organized his schedule with military precision, remembered details he forgot, and somehow kept him human when the pressure threatened to turn him into a machine. Then one Tuesday morning her desk was empty. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a brief resignation letter delivered through HR and the echo of her absence in every corner of his office. He had tried to find her. Private investigators, social media searches, even casual inquiries through mutual friends. But Luna Hayes had vanished as completely as if she had never existed. Eventually, he forced himself to stop looking. Business demanded his attention, and there were always new deals, new opportunities, new mountains to climb. Now here she was, or at least her name was, painted on a storefront in his childhood town. Coincidence seemed impossible. The universe was not usually so poetic in its ironies. James pushed open the cafe door, and a small bell announced his arrival. The scent of fresh coffee and acrylic paint filled his nostrils. Jazz music played softly from hidden speakers, and conversations hummed at a comfortable volume. It felt like stepping into a different world, one where stress and deadlines had no power. "Welcome to Luna's," a teenage girl called from behind the counter. "Find a seat anywhere you like. Luna will be right with you." James's heart hammered against his ribs. After 9 years of wondering, of questions that had no answers, he was about to see her again. He chose a small table near the window, his back to the rest of the cafe. Cowardly, perhaps, but he needed a moment to prepare. "I'm sorry for the wait. Tuesday afternoons get a bit crazy with our kids' art class." The voice was exactly as he remembered. Warm honey with just a hint of laughter underneath. James turned slowly, and there she was. Luna Hayes looked exactly the same and completely different all at once. Her dark hair was shorter now, falling just past her shoulders in gentle waves. She wore paint-splattered jeans and a cream-colored a sweater that brought out the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Lines of laughter touched the corners of those eyes, and there was a confidence in her posture that had not been there before. She was holding a notepad and pen, ready to take his order. Then she really looked at him and her face went completely still. "Hello, Luna," James said quietly. The notepad slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. For a moment, neither of them moved. The cafe continued around them, children laughing at their art projects. The espresso machine hissing steam, life carrying on as if the world had not just shifted on its axis. James. His name was barely a whisper. "What are you doing here, business?" he said, then realized how cold that sounded. "I mean, Richardson Industries is looking at property in town. For a data center." Luna bent to pick up her notepad, and James noticed her hands were shaking slightly. When she stood, she had composed herself, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Of course you are," she said. There was no bitterness in her voice, just a kind of weary resignation. "I should have expected that eventually you would find your way back here. I didn't know you were here, Luna. If I had known—" "What? You would have stayed away?" She managed a small smile, but it did not reach her eyes. "That might have been kinder." Before James could respond, a small voice piped up from across the cafe. "Mama, can I use the purple paint now?" James turned toward the voice and felt the world stop spinning entirely. A little girl sat at one of the painting easels, her dark hair pulled back in 2 braids. She was maybe 8 years old, wearing a smock covered in rainbows of paint. But it was her eyes that made James's breath catch in his throat. Large and thoughtful, with gold flecks that caught the afternoon light. He knew those eyes. He saw them in the mirror every morning. The child looked up and noticed him staring. Instead of shying away, she gave him a curious smile and a little wave. James raised his hand automatically, returning the gesture while his mind raced to make sense of what he was seeing. "That's Sophie," Luna said quietly, following his gaze. "My daughter." James did the math without conscious thought. 8 years old. 9 years since Luna had left his company. The timeline fit perfectly, terrifyingly, impossibly. He looked back at Luna, questions burning in his eyes. She was watching her daughter with fierce protectiveness, but there was something else there too. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "Luna," he started, but she shook her head. "Not here," she said. "Not now." Sophie had returned to her painting, completely absorbed in her work. She held her brush the same way James did when he signed contracts, tongue poking out slightly in concentration. Every few seconds, she would step back to examine her progress. Tilting her head at the same angle James used when considering a difficult problem, the resemblance was unmistakable. This child, this beautiful, creative, happy child, was his daughter. He was certain of it in a way that bypassed rational thought and went straight to his soul. "Meet me after closing," Luna said. Her voice was steady, but James could hear the emotional undercurrent. The bench by the lake, you remember it? Of course he remembered. They had shared their first kiss on that bench during senior year of high school, back when the future stretched endlessly ahead of them and anything seemed possible. James nodded, not trusting his voice. He stood on unsteady legs and walked toward the door, pausing only to look back at Sophie one more time. She was painting a sunset, all oranges and purples and impossible beauty. She looked up and smiled at him again, and James felt something crack open in his chest. Outside in the fading afternoon light, James leaned against his sedan and tried to process what had just happened. The space of 10 minutes, his entire understanding of his life had been rewritten. He was a father, had been a father for 8 years without knowing it. Luna had kept this secret from him. His daughter, his flesh and blood, did not even know his name. The questions multiplied like fractals in his mind. Why had Luna hidden this from him? How had she managed to disappear so completely? What kind of life had she built for Sophie here in Willowbrook? And most importantly, what was he going to do now? James Richardson was used to having answers. His success had come from his ability to analyze situations quickly and make decisive choices. But as he watched the sun sink lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the town he had once been so eager to escape. He realized that all his wealth and power meant nothing in the face of this discovery. He had a daughter, and he had missed 8 years of her life. The weight of that loss settled over him like a heavy coat. Sophie's first steps, her first words, bedtime stories and scraped knees and Christmas mornings. All of it had happened without him. All of it was gone forever, no matter how much money he threw at the problem. But she was here now. They both were. And for the first time since building his empire, James Richardson was not sure what his next move should be. The only thing he knew for certain was that his life had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more important. As his driver started the engine and they pulled away from Luna's art cafe, James caught one last glimpse of Sophie through the window. She was showing her painting to another child, her face bright with pride and joy. His daughter, his beautiful, unknown daughter. Everything else could wait until tonight. The lake stretched before them like a mirror reflecting the first stars of evening. James sat on the familiar wooden bench where they had carved their initials as teenagers. His expensive suit jacket folded beside him. The casual clothes he had changed into felt strange after so many years of corporate armor. Luna approached slowly, her footsteps soft on the gravel path. She had traded her paint-splattered jeans for a simple blue dress, and her hair caught the moonlight as she moved. The years melted away, and for a moment James could see the 18-year-old girl who had promised to write him letters when he left for college. She sat down carefully, leaving space between them. The silence stretched until the water lapped against the shore, filling the quiet with gentle rhythm. "She's mine, isn't she?" James finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Luna stared across the water, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Yes. The single word hit him like a physical blow, even though he had already known. Hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that mere suspicion could not. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out harsher than he intended. Years of buried hurt bleeding through his careful control. "I tried," Luna said quietly. "I wrote you letters, James. Dozens of them. I've sent emails, left voicemails with your assistant." "You never responded." James frowned, turning to look at her profile in the dim light. "I never received any letters. No emails about anything personal. Your new assistant screened everything. Said you were too busy with the expansion to deal with personal matters." Luna's voice carried old pain, carefully buried but still raw. "Around the edges?" After 6 months of silence, I got the message. The memory surfaced slowly, like a photograph developing in solution. Rebecca Chen, his assistant, after Luna left. Efficient, protective, utterly devoted to keeping distractions away from him during the crucial expansion phase. She had mentioned filtering his communications, handling personal correspondence so he could focus on business. "What did you say in the letters?" he asked, dreading the answer. Luna was quiet for a long moment, watching a family of ducks glide across the darkening water. "The first one just said I was pregnant and thought you should know. No demands, no expectations, just information." James felt sick, and the others. Updates. "When I found out she was a girl, when she was born, her first word was Dada, and I thought you might want to know that." Her voice cracked slightly. "The last letter was a photo of her first birthday. After that, I stopped trying." The weight of lost time pressed down on James's chest. Sophie's entire existence had been reduced to filtered communications, deemed unimportant by an assistant who thought she was protecting his interests. "I would have come back," he said fiercely. "If I had known, I would have dropped everything and come back. Would you?" Luna turned to face him fully, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Really? Or would you have seen her as another obligation to manage? Another problem to solve with money and careful scheduling?" The question stung because part of him recognized the truth in it. 9 years ago, he had been consumed with building his empire. Every decision was filtered through the lens of business strategy. Would he have been capable of being a real father then? Or would Sophie have become another item on his calendar? "I don't know," he admitted. "But I should have had." The chance to try? Luna wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was scared, James. You were becoming someone I didn't recognize. All you talked about was the next deal, the next expansion. When I told you I was thinking about leaving the company, you offered me a raise and more stock options. You didn't ask why I was unhappy or what I needed. You just threw money at the problem. The memory was fuzzy, but James could picture it. Luna sitting in his office, looking uncomfortable in a way he had chosen not to examine too closely. He had been preparing for the Tokyo launch, his mind scattered across 12 different time zones. I thought that's what you wanted, he said weakly. I wanted you to fight for me, Luna replied. Not as an employee, but as someone who mattered to you. Instead, you treated our relationship like a business transaction. James stared at his hands. Expensive watch, catching the moonlight. We were never just business to me, Luna, but I didn't know how to separate my feelings from my ambitions. I thought if I could build something big enough, successful enough, then I would deserve everything I wanted, including you. By the time you felt worthy, I was already gone. They sat in silence again, years of misunderstanding settling between them like dust. James tried to picture Luna pregnant and alone, writing letters to a man who never responded. He imagined her giving birth without anyone to hold her hand, raising a baby by herself while he collected awards and magazine covers. Tell me about her, he said softly. Tell me about Sophie. Luna's face softened, the defensive walls lowering as she thought about her daughter. She's brilliant, too smart for her own good sometimes. She reads at a high school level but still believes in fairy tales. She wants to be an artist like her mama, but she also talks about inventing things to help people. She has your creativity and your stubborn streak. When she decides she wants something, she doesn't give up. Last year she wanted to learn piano, so she practiced on a cardboard keyboard for 3 months until I could afford real lessons. James felt a pang of guilt. While his daughter practiced on cardboard, he had been buying art collections and vintage cars. What does she know about me? That her father lives far away and couldn't be part of our family? Alsuna's voice was gentle but firm. I never made you the villain, James. I just said that sometimes people's lives go in different directions. Does she ever ask questions? Constantly? She's 8 years old and smarter than most adults I know. She asks why you never visit, if you know about her, whether you look like her. Luna paused, studying his face. She does look like you know, not just the eyes. The way she concentrates, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking. Sometimes. It's like watching you at 8 years old. James tried to imagine himself at Sophie's age, but his childhood felt like it belonged to someone else. I was angry at 8, he said. My father left when I was 7, and I spent most of elementary school waiting for him to come back. Is that why you never married? Never had kids? The question caught him off guard. I told myself I was too busy, but maybe I was just afraid of becoming him, and now. James looked across the lake, where lights from distant houses twinkled like earthbound stars. Now I find out I already am him. I have a daughter who doesn't know me, who spent 8 years without a father because I was too wrapped up in my own ambitions to receive a simple message. You're not him, James, Luna said firmly. Your father chose to leave. You never had the choice. But I'm here now, and I don't know what to do with that. He turned to face her, vulnerability replacing his usual confidence. I don't know how to be a father, Luna. I don't know how to be anything except a CEO. Being a parent isn't about knowing what to do, Luna said. It's about showing up and figuring it out as you go. It's about putting someone else's needs before your own, even when it's inconvenient. James thought about his packed schedule, the board meetings and investor calls that filled every hour of every day. My life isn't exactly child-friendly. Then change your life. The simple statement hung in the air between them. James had restructured entire companies, revolutionized industries, moved markets with his decisions. But the idea of restructuring his personal life felt impossible. It's not that easy, he said. Why not? You've rebuilt this entire company from scratch twice. You created jobs for thousands of people and changed how the world thinks about sustainable technology. If you can do all that you can learn to be present for one 8-year-old girl. James was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. What if I'm too late? What if she doesn't want a father now? Luna smiled for the first time since they had sat down. She drew a picture last week of what she thinks you look like. She imagines you as a superhero who saves people with computers. In her mind, you're already larger than life. That's a lot to live up to. You don't have to be a superhero, James. You just have to be her dad. The word felt foreign and wonderful. On his tongue, Dad, Father, Papa, all the names he had never expected to hear. I want to try, he said finally. I want to be part of her life if you'll let me. Luna studied his face in the moonlight, searching for something. This isn't a business deal, James. You can't just show up when it's convenient and disappear. When something more important comes along, Sophie needs consistency, not a part-time father who treats her like a side project. I understand, do you? Because the moment you walk into her life, you become responsible for her heart. If you leave again, if you let her down, it won't just hurt her. It will teach her that the people who are supposed to love her most can't be trusted. The weight of that responsibility settled on James's shoulders. He thought about all the deals he had walked away from, all the partnerships he had terminated when they no longer served his interests. Fatherhood would not offer the same exit strategies. I won't leave, he said. Not again. Luna searched his eyes for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Tomorrow is Saturday. That's Sophia's art class in the morning, but we're free in the afternoon. Maybe you could take us somewhere. Nothing fancy. Just somewhere you can spend time with her. The Children's Museum in Cedar Falls? Perfect. She loves museums. Luna stood up, brushing dust from her dress. James, one more thing. Don't try to buy her affection. She doesn't need expensive gifts or fancy trips. She just needs your attention. James nodded, though part of him was already mentally cataloging all the things he wanted to give his daughter. The best art supplies, a real piano, college funds, travel opportunities, everything he had never had as a child. But Luna was right. Love could not be purchased, only given freely. They walked back toward town in comfortable silence, years of hurt beginning to heal in the space between their footsteps. James found himself stealing glances at Luna, remembering why he had fallen in love with her all those years ago. She was still the same person who had seen potential in his half-formed dreams and helped him build something real from nothing. At the edge of the town square, they paused under an old street lamp. Thank you, James said quietly, for raising her alone. All these years. For making her into someone I can already see as extraordinary. Luna smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like the girl he had known in high school. She's the best thing I ever did. It's the best thing we ever did, even if we didn't do it together. As they parted ways, James walked slowly back to his hotel, his mind spinning with plans and possibilities. Tomorrow, he would meet his daughter properly. Tomorrow, he would begin learning how to be the father she deserved. But tonight, he had one more call to make. Rebecca, he said when his former assistant answered. It's James. I need to know about the personal correspondence you filtered during the expansion, specifically anything from Luna Hayes. There was a long pause. Mr. Richardson? That was 9 years ago. I don't really remember. Try another pause. There might have been some letters. Personal matters. I thought it was best to keep you focused on business during such a critical time. His eyes, feeling the full weight of what his success had cost him. Rebecca, those letters were about my daughter. My daughter, who I never knew existed because you decided what was important in my life. The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I thought I was protecting you. Yes. You were protecting my business, James corrected. But you cost me 8 years with my child. After he hung up, James sat in his hotel room and stared at the city lights outside his window. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow he would stop being just a successful businessman and start learning how to be a father. The thought terrified and excited him. In equal measure, Saturday morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of Luna's art cafe. James stood outside at exactly 10 o'clock, his hands slightly trembling as he checked his watch for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. He had changed clothes 4 times that morning, finally settling on dark jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt. Nothing that screamed billionaire CEO. It's nothing that would make an 8-year-old girl feel intimidated through the window. He could see Sophie at her easel, completely absorbed in painting what looked like a garden full of impossible flowers. Her tongue poked out slightly as she concentrated, and James felt his heart squeeze tight. This was his daughter. This bright, creative, beautiful child was part of him. The bell chimed as he entered, and Sophie looked up with those familiar eyes. "Hi, Mr. James," she said with a shy smile. "Mama said you might come with us to the museum today." "If that's okay with you," James replied, his voice softer than he intended. Sophie tilted her head, considering him seriously. "Do you like dinosaurs? I think they're fascinating." "Do you? They're my second favorite thing," Sophie announced. "Art is first, dinosaurs are second, and ice cream is third." James found himself smiling genuinely for the first time in days. That's a very good list. Luna emerged from the back room, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. She had changed into comfortable jeans and a green sweater that made her eyes sparkle. "Ready for our adventure?" The drive to Cedar Falls took 40 minutes, and James found himself learning more about his daughter with each passing mile. Sophie chattered freely from the back seat, telling him about her art teacher, Mrs. Patterson, her best friend Zoe, and the story she was writing about a dragon who was afraid of heights. "Dragons are supposed to fly," she explained earnestly, "but this one gets scared when he's too high up, so he has to learn to be brave." "That sounds like a very important story," James said, catching her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Mama says the best stories are about people being scared but doing brave things anyway." Luna glanced at James, and he saw something warm in her expression. Pride, maybe, or hope. The Children's Museum was exactly what James had expected. Colorful, noisy, and full of wonder. Sophie transformed the moment they walked through the doors, her earlier shyness melting away as she grabbed James's hand. "Come see the space exhibit first," she demanded, tugging him toward a room filled with hanging planets and interactive displays. For the next 3 hours, James followed his daughter from exhibit to exhibit, watching her climb through the human body maze, create storms in the weather station, and carefully examine every fossil in the dinosaur hall. She had an endless stream of questions, and James found himself working harder to keep up with her curious mind than he ever had in any boardroom. "Why did the T-Rex have such tiny arms if it was so big?" Sophie asked, standing in front of a massive skeleton. James looked at the placard, but before he could read the scientific explanation, Sophie was already forming her own theory. "Maybe it was like how I can't reach the top shelf in the kitchen," she said thoughtfully. "Sometimes being big in one way means you're small in another way." The simple wisdom in her observation caught James off guard. "That's very insightful, Sophie." "What does insightful mean?" "It means you're smart and you notice things other people might miss." Sophie beamed at the compliment, then immediately moved on to examine a triceratops skull. James watched her go, marveling at her natural confidence and curiosity. Luna had raised an extraordinary child. During lunch in the museum cafe, Sophie carefully arranged her apple slices into a flower pattern before eating them. "Do you have any kids?" she asked James between bites of her sandwich. Luna froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. James felt the weight of the moment, the perfect opening to tell Sophie the truth. But looking at his daughter's trusting face, he realized this conversation needed to happen privately, with Luna's guidance. "No," he said simply, "but I'm learning that I really enjoy spending time with you." Sophie smiled, apparently satisfied. "With this answer, you're different than I thought you'd be." "What did you think I'd be like?" "My mama said you were very important and very busy. I thought you might wear a crown or something." James laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise everyone at the table. "No crown. Just regular clothes and a job that keeps me traveling a lot." "Do you like traveling?" But it struck deep. James thought about all the cities he had visited, all the hotel rooms that looked the same, all the restaurants where he had eaten alone while working on his laptop. "I used to think I did," he said carefully, "but I'm starting to think I might like staying in one place more." After lunch, they moved to the art studio, where children could create their own masterpieces. Sophie immediately claimed a spot at a table covered with paints, brushes, and blank canvases. She worked with the focused intensity of a professional, artist occasionally glancing up to study James's face. "What are you painting?" he asked. "It's a surprise," Sophie said mysteriously. James found himself relaxing in a way he had not experienced in years. There were no phones ringing, no urgent emails, no crises demanding his immediate attention. Just the simple pleasure of watching his daughter create something beautiful from nothing. His own phone buzzed twice, then 3 times. Important messages, no doubt. Deals waiting for his approval, meetings that needed his input. But James let it buzz. For the first time in his adult life, something else was more important than business. "Mr. James," Sophie said, holding up her finished painting, "this is for you." The canvas showed 3 stick figures standing under a bright blue sky. A tall man with dark hair, a woman with brown hair, and a little girl in the middle. They were all holding hands and smiling enormous smiles. James felt his throat tighten. "It's beautiful, Sophie. Thank you." "The little girl is me," Sophie explained. "The lady is Mama, and the man." She paused, looking suddenly uncertain. "The man is very lucky to be in such a wonderful picture," James said softly. Sophie's face lit up. "You can hang it in your office if you want." "I will put it in the most important place I have," James promised, and he meant it. As they prepared to leave the museum, James's phone rang. The caller ID showed Thomas Bradley, the chairman of his board of directors. "Urgent," the text preview read, "Need to discuss Tokyo's situation immediately." James stared at the phone, his thumb hovering over the answer button. 6 months ago, he would have taken the call without hesitation. The Tokyo expansion was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and any problems required his immediate attention. "Is that important?" Luna asked quietly, noticing his hesitation. "It always is," James replied. Then he powered off the phone and put it in his pocket. But not today. On the drive home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat, still clutching her museum gift bag. James found himself driving more slowly than usual, reluctant for the day to end. "She had fun," Luna said softly, glancing back at their sleeping daughter. "So did I. More fun than I've had in years." "She likes you." "I can tell." James felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I like her too. She's incredible, Luna. You've done an amazing job raising her." "We've done an amazing job," Luna corrected. "Your genetics gave her that curiosity, that intensity, when she focuses on something. That's all you." They drove in comfortable silence until they reached Willowbrook. As James pulled into Luna's driveway, his phone buzzed insistently from his pocket. Even powered off, he could feel the weight of missed calls and urgent messages. "I should probably check this," he said apologetically, turning the phone back. On, the screen immediately exploded with notifications. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and dozens of emails marked urgent. The Tokyo deal was falling apart. The board was in emergency session. His presence was required immediately. James scrolled through the messages, his mind automatically shifting into crisis mode. He could catch a red-eye flight tonight, be in Tokyo by Monday morning, and salvage the situation. It would mean missing his plans with Sophie tomorrow, but he could make it up to her next weekend, or the weekend after that. "Problem?" Luna asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "The Tokyo expansion? Something's gone wrong with the partnership agreements. They need me there immediately." Luna was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "And you're going to go?" It was not a question. James looked at his phone again, then at Sophie sleeping peacefully in the back seat. "I have to. This deal represents 3 years of work and thousands of jobs. I can't just let it fall apart." "Of course not," Luna said, but her voice had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by a familiar distance. "Luna, this isn't like before. This is just one crisis. After I handle this, I can come back and we can." "James." Luna's voice was gentle, but firm. "Stop." He looked at her, seeing something in her eyes that made his chest tight. "Do you hear yourself?" she asked. "Sophie is sleeping 3 feet away from you, and you're already planning to leave. She's not even in your life for 24 hours, and work is already more important. It's not more important, James protested. It's just urgent. Everything is always urgent in your world. There'll always be another crisis, another deal that can't wait, another reason why you have to choose business over family. James felt frustrated, misunderstood. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. People depend on me. The company depends on me. And your daughter depends on you too, Luna said quietly. But she's 8 years old, so her needs don't send urgent text messages. They don't threaten to cost millions of dollars. Just exist. Quiet and patient, waiting for you to notice them. James stared at his phone screen, at the cascade of urgent demands for his attention. Then he looked at Sophie, still sleeping peacefully, her small hand still clutching the painting she had. Made for him. What kind of father chooses work over his child after one day? Luna asked, her voice breaking slightly. The question hit James like a physical blow. What kind of father indeed? The same kind of father his own dad had been, apparently. One more business trip. One more important meeting. One more reason why everything else had to wait. James thought about all the promises his father had made and broken. All the baseball games missed, the birthdays forgotten. The gradual erosion of trust until 7-year-old James stopped believing that his father would ever really come back. Now he was about to do the same thing to Sophie. I can send someone else, he said suddenly. Luna looked at him with surprise. To Tokyo. I can send Bradley or Martinez. They know the deal almost as well as I do. James was already composing the message in his head. It won't be easy, and the board won't like it, but the company won't collapse if I'm not there for one crisis. James, are you sure? This sounds like it's important to you. James looked at his daughter again, at the peaceful expression on her sleeping face. She's more important. For the first time since he had returned to Willowbrook, Luna smiled at him with genuine warmth. She's going to be so happy when she wakes up, and you're still here. James spent the next hour in Luna's kitchen, making phone calls and delegating responsibilities. It was harder than he had expected, letting go of direct control over such a major situation. But with each call, with each task he handed off to his capable team, he felt a strange sense of relief. When Sophie woke up from her nap, she found James sitting at the kitchen table with Luna, looking at photo albums from her childhood. You're still here? She said sleepily, rubbing her eyes. I'm still here, James confirmed. And I was wondering if you might want to show me your art room tomorrow. Your mom says you have some paintings I should see. Sophie's face lit up, brighter than the museum's planetarium. Really? You want to see all of them? Every single one? As the evening wore on, James found himself settling into the rhythm of family life. He helped Sophie with a puzzle, listened to her read a story about a brave mouse, and sat with Luna on the porch while Sophie caught fireflies in the gathering dusk. His phone buzzed occasionally, but James let the calls go too. Voicemail. His team was handling Tokyo, and the world was still spinning without his constant attention. I used to dream about this, Luna said softly, watching Sophie chase lightning bugs across the yard. About what? Family dinners? Sophie having a father to share her drawings with. Someone else to tuck her in at night when I'm too tired to. Read one more story. Luna paused, her voice growing wistful. I used to imagine what it would be like if you knew about her. If you were part of our daily life instead of just a secret I kept. James reached for her hand and she let him take. I want to be part of that life, Luna. Not just on weekends or holidays. I want to be here for the ordinary moments too. What about your empire, your company? James was quiet for a moment, watching Sophie's delighted laughter as she successfully captured a particularly bright firefly. I built the company because I thought success would make me worthy of love, but I already have love, right here. Maybe it's time to build a life instead of just a business. What does that mean? It means I'm moving back to Willowbrook. It means I'm going to learn how to be present instead of just productive. It means I'm going to put Sophie first, even when it's inconvenient. Luna studied his face in the porch light. That's going to be a big change for you. The biggest, James agreed, but also the most important. Later that night, after Sophie had been tucked into bed with promises of pancakes in the morning, James and Luna sat on the front steps under a canopy of stars. She asked me tonight if you were her daddy, Luna said quietly. James's heart stopped. What did you tell her? I told her that was a conversation we all needed to have together. Tomorrow. James nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and possibility in equal measure. Tomorrow, he would officially become a father. Tomorrow, his daughter would learn that the man she had spent the day with, the man who had listened to her stories and admired her art, was her dad. Are you scared? Luna asked. Terrified, James admitted, but also hopeful.
Oh.
For the first time in years, I'm excited about the future instead of just driven by it. Luna leaned against his shoulder, and James felt a peace he had never experienced. In any boardroom or corner office, his phone buzzed one more time. Another urgent message, no doubt. Another crisis that supposedly needed his immediate attention. James powered off the phone without looking at it. Tomorrow, he would wake up in Willowbrook. He would make pancakes with his daughter, help her paint, and begin the long journey of earning her trust and love. He would learn to be the father she deserved, the partner Luna needed, and the man he had always been meant to be. The boy who had left this town chasing success had finally come home. And for the first time in his life, James Richardson knew exactly where he belonged. As shooting stars traced silver paths across the summer sky, James made a promise to himself, to Luna, and to the sleeping child inside the house. He would not leave again. He would not choose business over love. He would build something more valuable than any empire, a family. And unlike every other project he had ever undertaken, this one would last forever.